Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you had a good weekend. Chances are, if you're a Notre Dame fan, you didn't have a good weekend. And chances are, if you're a Colts fan, you came out of yesterday's game a little frustrated, but also a little bit hopeful, because say what you want about Anthony Richardson. That dude's talented. That guy has a ton of upside, and he was exactly what everyone thought he would be. He was everything that he was advertised to be yesterday. And as I was watching the Anthony Richardson performance, watching the Colts game, obviously I watched more football than just the Colts game. Please, I watched all the football yesterday. It was fantastic. And, I'm watching these games and, commercials are popping up. And, have you ever, I'm assuming you have, seen a commercial where they advertise some sort of drug? The commercial starts off and it's all sad and dreary, right? But as the commercial progresses and they start telling you about this drug, it gets happy, right? All of a sudden, like the sun is shining. People are riding bikes. They're on a beach walking, big smiling faces everywhere. Right. And during the commercial, they list off all the things that whatever drug helps with. And you sit there on your couch and you're like kind of interested. You're like, I kind of struggle with those symptoms mildly. Like maybe this is a drug that I can use. Then at the end of the commercial, they list all the side effects. They're like, if you take this, you may suffer nausea, vomiting, fatigue, dizziness, dry mouth, headache, itching, muscle aches, and pains. And then you're like, oh, no, I'm good. You hear all those side effects, and you change your mind, unless you were mightily struggling with whatever the drug is for. And as I'm watching these commercials and I'm thinking about Anthony Richardson, there's a lot of correlation. And we saw it on full display from Anthony Richardson yesterday. Okay, like these drugs that we see advertised on TV, you get all these positives with Anthony Richardson. He's big. He can throw the ball of 65 yards in the air on a dime after slipping off of his back foot. Okay, he can make crazy plays, and he's strong, and he can run. That fourth down run where he got in the end zone, where the dude hit him at the 3-yard line, and he just kind of kept running in and scored, was absurd. Okay, you get all of these positive traits, all of these great things. Okay, he can make these crazy plays that only an infinitesimal amount of quarterbacks can make. But there are negatives. There are downsides. He was 9 of 19 passing, which completion percentage doesn't tell the entire story. Usually, in Anthony Richardson's case, he sailed some balls, he left some short. Okay, like there are definitely some negative side effects. Like when the Indianapolis Colts, when they drafted Anthony Richardson, they should have put out one of these like drug commercial promos for Anthony Richardson. It would have been really easy for them to try one. Like here, just check. Hello there. Are you an Indianapolis Colts fan? Are you tired of the revolving door at quarterback? Are you ready to move past and forget about the Andrew Luck retirement that happened 5 years ago? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then we have the quarterback for you. Introducing the 4th overall selection of the 2023 NFL Draft, Anthony Richardson. He stands tall and firm at 6'4", 250 pounds, but that size doesn't slow him down as he possesses 4.4 speed. When it comes to throwing the football, he has the arm strength of Zeus. He is a physical specimen that the quarterback position has never seen before. Side effects of the incredibly athletic quarterback may include inaccurate short passes, overthrowing deep passes, sailing intermediate passes, bad decision-making, and many, many injuries. If you want to see this in action, buy season tickets today. Would have been so easy. And they should have aired that everywhere, and people would have flocked to it because, let's be honest, the Colts haven't had good, solid, consistent quarterback play since Andrew Luck left. It has been a struggle. And so here's what's going to happen. As I said earlier with, the drug commercial, you hear all the good things, right? And if your symptoms are mild, once you hear the side effects, you back away. But if whatever the drug addresses really meets your needs and you're really struggling in that department, then you are willing to go through the side effects. And that is where this Indianapolis Colts organization is. Okay? They're going to sit back today. They're going to go through film and they're going to see the 65-yard dot to Alec Pierce that was a touchdown. They're going to see him throwing that deep dig route that ended up being like a 54-yard touchdown. Like, they're going to see all the positives and be more than willing to live with the negatives. Both the Indianapolis coaches, Chris Ballard, Jim Irsay, and Indianapolis Colts fans. And it's because they are desperate to have a they're just desperate for any sort of franchise quarterback. And so they're going to deal with the side effects, right? And hopefully over the course of the year, hopefully as Anthony Richardson matures and gets older and gets more experience, we need to keep in mind that he is the youngest quarterback in the NFL, or the youngest starting quarterback in the NFL. And hopefully over time, the side effects wear off. Okay? Because no one can deny it. If you like Anthony Richardson, you won't deny it. If you don't like Anthony Richardson, you can't deny it. The dude is incredibly talented. He's insane. We saw the arm strength multiple times. Okay, we saw it twice on the deep balls to Alec Pierce. We saw him throw that over route. That was just absurd. Okay, like, the arm strength is undeniable. We saw the speed and the running ability on multiple, on multiple runs by Anthony Richardson, whether that's him scrambling or him reading, the defense and keeping it as opposed to handing it off to Jonathan Taylor. Like, we saw everything that made him the 4th overall pick. We saw the power on the touchdown run. The fact that he got in on that is still kind of ridiculous. The dude is clearly talented. There aren't very many quarterbacks. I don't think there is any quarterback except for maybe Josh Allen in the NFL that can do what Anthony Richardson does. There were only 5 quarterbacks in the NFL yesterday that threw for more yards than Anthony Richardson did. And he only completed 9 passes. Okay? Say what you want about Anthony Richardson. Okay, I have some complaints of my own. I thought he missed too many bunnies. But he put the Colts in a position to win the game. He did. The Colts scored 27 points. That should be enough to win in the NFL. That should be enough. But the defense didn't do their part. And when you consider the fact that there were multiple facets of this Colts offense that weren't working very well, for example, the run game, Jonathan Taylor, 16 carries for only 48 yards. And the fact that Anthony Richardson was still able to figure out a way to put up 27 points is ridiculous. And after the game, Shane Steichen, Colts head coach, was asked about Anthony Richardson's performance in his first game of the season. Here's Colts head coach Shane Steichen talking about Anthony Richardson.
He made some big-time plays for us. Obviously, that opening touchdown pass to Alec, I don't think I've seen a throw like that. And then he hit another big one, to Alec right there at the end on the 2-minute drive to get down there and score. He had Ashton on the end cut, and then 4th down, got to have it. I mean, he just powered his will to go get in. I thought he did some really good things coming back.
That was Indianapolis head coach Shane Steichen talking about the good things that Anthony Richardson did yesterday. Okay, and look, we all saw all the positives. We did, okay? They're all over Twitter right now. Just go to Twitter, type in NFL, type in Anthony Richardson, type in Colts, type in football. And the first thing that you're going to see is that Anthony Richardson 65-yard touchdown pass to Alec Pierce. It was on SportsCenter this morning. It's going to be on SportsCenter tomorrow. It's going to be on TV all day today because it was utterly absurd. Okay? And the highs were incredibly high, just like we thought they would be. But in addition to all these highs that we went on, we also saw a lot of the negatives. He missed 3 short throws that would have extended drives. And he missed 2 deep shots to A.D. Mitchell that would have been touchdowns and would have changed the game in those moments. The 3 drive extenders, there's an out route, a curl route, and then I believe a crosser over the middle that he missed. You can't miss those. You can't. Okay? Like, those are throws that an average starting quarterback in the NFL makes. Those are throws that Derek Carr makes. Those are throws that Alex Smith would have made. Okay, like, you have to hit your layups. Okay, like, I love hitting, the big shots down the field. They're fun. They're exciting. But consistency is how you win in the NFL. Teams that are able to consistently sustain drives win. Okay, for two reasons. First of all, like, if you're consistently moving the ball down the field, you're going to score points. And secondly, if you're consistently moving the ball down the field, you give your defense a chance to rest. The Colts defense was on the field for 40 minutes yesterday. Unacceptable. The offense has to be more consistent in moving the ball and holding on to the ball than what they were yesterday. Anthony Richardson cannot continue to miss those easy drive extending throws that he missed yesterday. The deep balls, I don't have a problem with him missing. Okay. Like, those are hard throws to make. They just are. I had, the split screen action going, and I had the Dolphins on one screen and a couple other games going as well. I saw Tua miss Tyreek Hill like 3 times yesterday on deep balls. They are hard completions to make. I don't expect for Anthony Richardson to hit every single deep ball. But miss it, like, if he hits one of them, like, the game's different. It just is. Right? They would have changed the game. And, he hit, obviously, 3 of them. He hit two to Pierce, and then he hit the deep over route. But those little easy drive extending throws, he has got to make those. And that was, part of the reservations of starting Anthony Richardson at quarterback for the Colts. Right? It's, can he hit the layups? Can he hit the easy throws? And since Shane Steichen didn't want to address the misses from Anthony Richardson during his, first response as to how Anthony Richardson played, one of the reporters here in Indianapolis followed up and asked Shane Steichen about the misses that Anthony Richardson had.
Yeah, obviously, he'd love to have those back. I mean, like I said, guys, he's gonna miss some throws, just like all these quarterbacks in the league will miss some throws. But we'll get them cleaned up.
Not much there. Just, he missed some throws. A lot of guys miss throws, and he's right. Quarterbacks miss throws all the time. We saw Lamar Jackson miss a throw on Thursday Night Football. We saw Patrick Mahomes miss a couple. I saw Tua miss some yesterday. I saw Matthew Stafford miss a couple last night. I saw Jared Goff miss some last night. But either way, like, short out routes, little curls, can't miss those. Okay? Or you can miss them, just not as badly as Anthony Richardson did yesterday. But this is what Anthony Richardson is going to be. Okay? He's like a drug commercial. Like, he's like a drug commercial. There's a lot of positives if you take the drug, but there are also side effects if you take it. Okay? And early in the season, we are going to see the side effects. We are going to see him missing guys, that are wide open. We're going to see him sail balls. We're going to see him short arm balls. We're going to see him miss some throws that we feel like an NFL quarterback should make. The ups and downs are going to happen, and the ups are going to be up. We're going to see him throw 65-yard touchdown passes to Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman Jr. and A.D. Mitchell. Okay, the ups are going to happen, but so are the downs. And here's the truth of the matter. If you had told me, and if you had known before the game that Jonathan Taylor was only going to average 3 yards a carry and the Houston Texans would win the time of possession battle 40 minutes to 20, there's no way any one of us would have thought that the Colts were going to even have a chance at winning. If you had told me before the game that the Colts weren't going to be able to run the ball and that the Colts defense would be on the field for 40 minutes, I'd have been like, oh, the Colts must have gotten blown out, like 35-10 or something like that. That would have been my thought process. But no, because Anthony Richardson is a stud, and because Anthony Richardson is capable of doing things that most other quarterbacks in the NFL can't do, they were still able to put up 27 points and be in a position to win the game. This offense is going to score points this year. They are. It's probably going to come off of a lot of big plays like what we saw yesterday, which is cool. It's fun. It's exciting. But here's the thing. If the Indianapolis Colts continue to score 27 points a game, they're going to win a lot of football games. They are. If the offense continues to put up points like that, would I like for the offense to be more consistent? Of course. Would I like for Anthony Richardson to hit those little bunnies? Of course. But if they keep scoring 27 points a game, I've got no issue whatsoever. Okay. And honestly, if Kylan Granson doesn't fall down, the Colts score more points and probably win the game. But instead, Kylan Granson falls, the ball gets intercepted, and the Colts lose. Okay. If the offense continues to score points like this, we're going to have no issues with them winning games. The question is going to be if the defense can get stops, but that's not my only question for the Indianapolis Colts coming out of this first game. I'm definitely going to touch on the defense, but when we come back here in about 4 minutes, I have to talk about this run game. I have to talk about this offensive line that we heard people rave about how great of an offensive line it was. 3 yards a carry, that's it. I've got thoughts on the Indianapolis Colts run game and how we were pretty much lied to when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Unadulterated sports talk with unfiltered takes. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. You heard it there in that promo. Monday Night Football tonight. 49ers Jets should be a lot of fun. Can't wait. We'll be tuned in to watch that game. Aaron Rodgers taking on his hometown 49ers is always fun to watch. So we'll be tuned into that. Should be a good, fun game. You can listen to that game live on the radio here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Now, I want to talk about something that we all expected. Two things, really, that we all expected, and we didn't really get to see much of at all. Let's start with Jonathan Taylor, who averaged a whopping 3 yards a carry, 16 carries for only 48 yards. It starts in the trenches. That's what Chris Ballard says, and he's right. That's how you win games, okay? At the end of the games, you have to be able to run the ball to win, and you got to be able to disrupt the opposition's quarterback in order to win. Chris Ballard's philosophy on that is correct. It just didn't show up in game one. I mean, they didn't run the ball very well at all when they handed it off to Jonathan Taylor, and Shane Steichen was asked about it after the game. Here's what the Indianapolis Colts head coach had to say.
Yeah, I think really you can put that on me. Like, I could have called more runs. You know what I mean? I could have called more runs there. I think we had 19 passes. I don't remember how many carries we had. But, yeah, we'll look at those things and get that thing cleaned up.
Shane Steichen there. And, look, I appreciate him falling on the sword. I appreciate, him doing what I would argue a good coach does, taking the blame off of his players. And he's right. He probably could have called more runs. But that's not the issue. The issue is when they handed the ball off to Jonathan Taylor, it didn't go very well at all. 16 carries, only 48 yards. His longest rush of the day was only 7 yards. That cannot happen. Now, thankfully, Anthony Richardson ran the ball pretty well. 6 carries for 56 yards, right? So that's going to boost up that average as the Indianapolis Colts averaged a little over 4.5 carries as a whole. But everything cannot be put on the shoulders of Anthony Richardson. Okay, there are going to be people who complain about Anthony Richardson today, right, because he missed some throws here and there. But the only reason the Colts were even in that game yesterday was because of Anthony Richardson. Very similar to the Lamar Jackson thing on Thursday Night Football. He missed a throw late. It's part of why the Ravens lost. And so people were ripping him on Friday. Oh, he missed that throw. He's why they lost. Yeah, Lamar Jackson on Thursday was also the only reason why the Ravens were in the game. And it's the exact same thing with the Colts yesterday. The only reason they had a chance to win that game is because of Anthony Richardson. Okay? And look, he needs help. It's his second year in the NFL. That was only his 5th NFL start. That's it. He has to have help. And I think we all thought that part of the help was going to come from the run game. I think we all thought that Jonathan Taylor was going to have a good year this year. We heard so much during training camp about this offensive line. Heard so much about it. Oh, top 5 unit, one of the best in the NFL. They've been together 3 years now. Oh, they're going to be so great. Jonathan Taylor's going to run for so many yards and yada, yada, yada. Jonathan Taylor, man, he's really torn up the Texans in his career. Remember week 18 last year? Right, ran for 188 yards on 30 carries. Oh, Jonathan Taylor's going to have a day. But we have to remember that the Houston Texans get paid as well. And we have to remember that the Houston Texans utilize this thing that the Colts don't, called free agency. And the Houston Texans went out and they added 3 starting caliber players to their front 7. And all 3 of them had an impact on yesterday's game. Once again, this is just me once again asking Chris Ballard to please start using free agency because you can find good, helpful, useful players there. Okay? And look, once again, I appreciate Shane Steichen falling on the sword. I think he's right. He probably could have called more run plays. But at the same time, the offensive line didn't get a consistent push. That's ultimately what it comes down to. I'm not going to sit here and rip on Jonathan Taylor because I don't think it was his fault. The offensive line has to be better. Has to be. This is supposed to be the strength of the Colts. And they simply were not good enough yesterday. The offensive line, Braden Smith, Ryan Kelly, Quentin Nelson, all these guys have to be better. Bernard Raymond, they have to be better. Okay? It's not on Jonathan Taylor. It's on this offensive line. They have to do a better job of getting a push. Okay? And sure, Steichen's probably right too. They probably should have given Jonathan Taylor, the best player on this offense, the ball more than 16 times. Either way, though, even if Jonathan Taylor should have been better, even if the offensive line should have generated a better push, 27 points should be enough to win. It really should, but it wasn't yesterday because this Colts defense wasn't very good. I find it kind of funny. We were all so worried about the secondary coming into this game. That's what we were all worried about. Oh, man, how's the secondary going to hold up? Nick Cross, I don't know. Julian Blackmon's supposed to be awesome, but I kind of want to see it during the regular season. Juju Brents didn't play a ton last year because he's always hurt. Jalen Jones, 7th-round pick. I don't know. I don't know. But I thought the secondary played well. They allowed one big play to Nico Collins. Happens sometimes, okay? Outside of that, they kept everything in front. CJ Stroud only averaged 7 yards a completion. That is a good job on the Colts' part. That is impressive. Okay? Like, seriously, I think we all came into this game and we expected for the Colts to give up like 300 yards through the air and to shut down the run. And the total opposite thing happened. Okay, the secondary did their job. They did their parts. They did a good job limiting CJ Stroud and Stephon Diggs and Nico Collins and Tank Dell. That is as good of a top 3 wide receiver group as the Colts are going to play against all year. They did a good job keeping them in check. And you and I'm assuming, were both surprised by that. And here's the other thing. The secondary also showed up a lot because they had to tackle Joe Mixon a ton. Nick Cross led the Colts in tackles with 14. That should never happen. And then to add insult to injury, Julian Blackmon, the Colts' other safety, was second on the Indianapolis Colts in tackles with 13. That should also never happen. The 2 leading tacklers for the Indianapolis Colts every single week should be the same 2 guys, Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed. Those 2 guys should lead the Colts in tackles every single week because they played linebacker, and that's what linebackers do. They come up and they stop the run, and they just didn't do that yesterday. This front 7 got pushed around all day. Joe Mixon had 30 carries for 159 yards. That's over 5 yards a carry. The Houston Texans, as a whole, had 40 carries for 213 yards. That cannot happen when the strength of the defense, the thing that we've been sold on all offseason, the thing that we were sold on the entire training camp, was the front 7. That cannot happen when the strength of your defense is your front 7. And the most annoying part, the thing that frustrates me more than anything else, is that Zaire Franklin, Colts starting linebacker, a guy who's usually amongst the leaders in the NFL in tackles, he talked all offseason about getting back at the Texans. Quote, I got to see that boy again, talking about CJ Stroud. And he was non-existent yesterday. Sure, he had 8 tackles, but you didn't feel his presence. I don't think his name got called once. Zaire Franklin on his podcast with EJ Speed talking about the Texans and how this is a revenge game. We got to get our get back and all those things. And they were just like, they didn't show up yesterday. They didn't play very well at all. So here's what I think needs to happen. Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed need to discontinue their podcast and go get better at football. Like, that's what should happen. Okay? Like, believe it or not, they're actually being paid to play football. They are not being paid to podcast. I don't know when athletes all of a sudden got this idea that, hey, I need to have a podcast. How about you go win something and then you can go start your podcast? Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed in their careers have combined for 0 Pro Bowls, 0 All-Pro selections, and 1 playoff win, EJ Speed's rookie year in 2018. Get off the podcast. Stop. Like, we don't want to hear your podcast, Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed. Nobody does. No one cares for it. How about instead, get off the podcast, go work on getting off of blocks because you didn't get off of very many yesterday. Work on tackling because you didn't have very many tackles yesterday, and go figure out how to win. Come on, man. EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin are the reason why the Indianapolis Colts lost yesterday. They didn't do their jobs coming up and stopping the run. Now, the defensive line could have been better. No doubt. They could have helped in the run game. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't. Grover Stewart, that's kind of supposed to be his MO. And he didn't stop the run yesterday. Neither did DeForest Buckner. But here's why I'm giving this Indianapolis Colts defensive line a pass. But they got after C.J. Stroud. They couldn't have done a better job generating pressure on the second-year quarterback out of Ohio State. They were in the backfield chasing him around every single play that the Houston Texans decided to throw the football. 4 sacks and 10 quarterback hits is wildly impressive. Okay, say what you want about the Colts defensive line. I will concede the point. They should have been better in the run game. There is no doubt about it in my mind. But they did their job in the passing game. They did. They chased C.J. Stroud around. They had him on the run. And look, C.J. Stroud made a couple just great plays. You know, they had like a 4th down conversion where he threw one from his knee, right? He had a long scramble where he picked one up. Once again, E.J. Speed, Zaire Franklin, where are you? You're playing zone. You should have your eyes on the quarterback. Why aren't you coming up and stopping that play? Come on now. Colts defensive line did their job. I was impressed. I thought that they played well. Leatu Latu, he didn't register a sack, but I thought he was really good off the edge, especially considering who he was, playing against. Laramie Tunsil is one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL. Didn't matter. Leatu Latu still got in the backfield and still did a good job applying pressure to C.J. Stroud in limited snaps. DeForest Buckner, say what you want about him. 1.5 sacks yesterday. I thought he played well in the pass game. Okay, I thought he had Kwity Paye. I thought he looked good coming off the edge. He had a sack. Let's add it to the Kwity Paye highlights clip. Okay, there was good from this defensive line. It just all came in one area of the game. Okay, they can get after the passer, which is a huge advantage. Okay, after seeing this game, I have a ton of faith in this Colts defense and their ability to close teams out in the future. Okay, when there's a minute and 49 seconds left and the Colts are up by 4 and they know that their opposition has to throw the ball to move the ball, 75 yards down the field to score. I know that this defensive line is going to generate pressure. And based off of what we saw yesterday, okay, I still don't have total faith in this Colts secondary, but based off of what they did yesterday against a good Texans team and a good passing attack, I have some hope. Wouldn't call it faith, wouldn't call it confidence. I have some hope that the Indianapolis Colts secondary can hold up in these tight 2-minute spots where they know that their opposing team is going to look to throw the ball a ton. Because I thought that on 3rd down, the Colts did a good job of covering. And I thought that the defensive line did a good job of moving C.J. Stroud off his spot. He just made some really good plays in the scramble drill. And that happens sometimes because the other guys are getting paid as well. The biggest thing, though, the biggest takeaway from this first Indianapolis Colts game is that Anthony Richardson, he did enough to keep the Colts in the game. But the defense let them down because they couldn't stop the run. The one thing that we all thought that this Colts defense was going to be good at doing, they simply did not do. When we come back here in about 4 minutes or so, something else happened this weekend that no one thought was going to happen. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. A little maction for you. I've got my thoughts on that when we come back here in 4 minutes.
More winners, more often. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
Man, this first hour, just moving so fast. I love an NFL Monday. The Colts obviously losing yesterday, 29-27. Anthony Richardson, though, I thought he looked good. I did. He's the only reason why the Colts had any chance in that game yesterday. The only reason the Colts had any chance whatsoever. The defense let him down. You can't give up 29 points and expect to win. Okay, and if you're the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, you can't expect to score you can't score 14 points and expect to win. Just can't happen. And I got to be honest, oh my gosh, I laughed for a while when the game went final. I was sitting there. I'll be honest, I was a little down in the dumps on Saturday. My Arkansas Razorbacks fumbled a game away on the road in Stillwater against a good Oklahoma State team. And I was sitting around, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go outside. I'm going to read. I just need a break from college football because I was a little frustrated after what my Razorbacks did. And my wife comes outside and she grabs me. She goes, hey, Jonathan, you might want to see what's happening in the Notre Dame game. So here's the moment that my Saturday just got so much better.
He's lining it up. 5 seconds left. NIU up 16-14. 62-yarder. Snap, hold, Jeter's kick. It's blocked! It's blocked! It's blocked! Picked up by NIU! Picked up by NIU! The Huskies have done it! The Huskies with the biggest upset in NIU history! They come to South Bend, Indiana, and they knock off the number 5 team in the country. NIU 16, Notre Dame 14. The football gods were shining down on NIU.
That was the call from NIU's radio team there. Great call, by the way. Love the enthusiasm. It was great. It made me so happy. It made my weekend. Okay, like I would be more upset about the Colts loss, but since Notre Dame decided to lose to Northern Illinois, I feel a lot better. Believe it or not, when it comes to Notre Dame, because we have to talk about Coach Freeman after that game. I still think he's a good coach. I've never thought he was a great one. He's not Ryan Day. He's not Nick Saban. He's not Kirby Smart. He's not any of these guys. Okay. He is a good defensive-minded coach. That is what he is. Offensively, not great. Clearly. You can't only score 14 points against Northern Illinois. Riley Leonard. Notre Dame went out and paid all this money to get Riley Leonard to transfer in from Duke. Paid him millions of dollars. Forked it out for him. Riley Leonard, a supposed first-round draft prospect. Okay, I remember him last year at Duke. People loved him, raved about him. But he might not be that anymore now that he's at Notre Dame. He threw 2 bad interceptions just on Saturday. He couldn't throw for 200 yards against Northern Illinois, a team from the MAC. Yet they threw the ball 33 times. Why? Why didn't they let Jeremiah Love run the football more? It's beyond me, really. I don't understand it. He had 11 carries, and he ran the ball for 73 yards. He averaged over 7 yards a carry. Now, I know he had a couple of big runs that inflate those numbers, but you're Notre freaking Dame, and they're Northern Illinois. I would have a better chance of surviving in Antarctica after being dropped from a helicopter naked with no supplies than Northern Illinois would have had at stopping Notre Dame's run game if they'd fully committed to it. There is no reason whatsoever to justify Notre Dame throwing the ball more than they ran the ball on Saturday. They were the physically superior team. They were the talent-wise, they were superior to Northern Illinois. Okay, like something that Notre Dame has always done well, at least in my lifetime, is they always have NFL-level offensive linemen. Don't know what it is. Something about South Bend. They just bring in these awesome offensive linemen. And the offensive line looked good against Texas A&M 2 weeks ago. They should have lined it up and ran Northern Illinois over again and again and again and again. Okay. I should have grabbed the Marshawn Lynch quote. Actually, that's not true. I would have gotten in a lot of trouble if I played that on the air. Run through a face. Okay. If you know it, you know it. That's what Notre Dame should have done. They should have lined up, I formation, none of this cute shotgun, none of this cute pistol stuff. Line up, I formation, and impose your will on an athletically inferior team. That's what Notre Dame should have done. Instead, they tried to throw the ball 33 times for whatever reason, and it just didn't work. That should have been a game where they turned around and they handed the ball off and ran Northern Illinois out of the building. But instead, they tried to throw it. Riley Leonard threw a couple interceptions, and that was all she wrote. Congrats to Northern Illinois for what will be the biggest upset of this college football season. Okay? And you would think it better end Notre Dame's hopes of making the playoff. If it doesn't, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to be so incredibly upset if Notre Dame still makes the playoff after losing to Northern Illinois. Okay? When you lose a game like that at home, you don't deserve to make it. And if Notre Dame makes it in spite of that, I'm going to be pretty upset, especially since they don't play anyone good except for USC the rest of the way. Okay? Next, Colorado got stomped. You know, we got to keep our eye on prime time. That is a national brand. Shedeur Sanders didn't play well. The offensive line didn't play well. And in typical Colorado fashion, Shedeur Sanders threw his offensive line under the bus when asked after the game how he thought he played compared to Nebraska's quarterback, Raiola, I think is his name. Shedeur Sanders says, quote, "How many times did Raiola get touched?" Throwing his offensive line under the bus, saying, they didn't give me enough time and all that crap. How about you say, you know what? I didn't play very well. I got to get rid of the ball quicker. That's what should have happened. When Colorado they upset me. I'm glad that they lost. They're not a good football team. They aren't going to make a bowl, and it's going to be awesome. IU won big over Western Illinois. Okay, didn't watch the second half of that game, which is what you want in those games, right? When you sit back and you watch these games, if your favorite team's playing a bad team, you don't want to have to watch the second half. Okay, if you're watching, Indiana play Western Illinois deep into the fourth quarter, your team's probably not going to be very good. Just ask Notre Dame fans. They went through that on Saturday. Good news, or bad news, I guess, for Purdue fans. They're coming out of this game, and they saw what happened to Notre Dame. They're like, oh, we have a chance. Tell you right now, Purdue fans, no, you don't. Because even though Notre Dame lost on Saturday, they're still wildly talented. They're still a good team. Good teams don't go into Texas A&M and win games. Bad teams don't go into Texas A&M and win games on the road at Kyle Field. Doesn't happen. Okay, so Purdue, what you're going to get is a highly motivated, highly upset Notre Dame football team, and they're going to come in and probably run you out of your own building. Just so you know, Boilermaker fans, that's what's going to happen on Saturday. Now, to step away from the football here for like a minute, the Indiana Fever are still playing basketball. Caitlin Clark is still being an absolute phenom. 26 points and 12 assists yesterday. And they're going to make the playoffs, and they're going to be wildly entertaining. I'm genuinely curious. How many of you watched the Fever game yesterday? How many of you even knew that there was a Fever game going on yesterday? Tweeted me at __ Jonathan Smith. Let me know if you watched the Fever and whether or not you were even aware that they were playing. You can also head over to YouTube, Indies Sports Ticket, subscribe, jump in the chat. You can let me know there as well. But the Fever did play yesterday, and Caitlin Clark continues to be a stud, 26 points and 12 assists. Aaliyah Boston continues to be a stud, 30 points and 13 rebounds. And Kelsey Mitchell had 21 points. When all three of them score 20 or more, they are not going to lose. They were down by 16 points in the third quarter, like halfway through the third quarter, and they battled their way back, and they won in overtime. These are the perks of having a high-powered offense like the Indiana Fever had. These are the perks of having a team that can just score, because that's what this Indiana Fever team does. They do nothing but get buckets. You are never out of a game when you have three players who can score like the Indiana Fever do, like Kelsey Mitchell, Caitlin Clark, and Aaliyah Boston do, right? And they've also got shooters. Katie Lou Samuelson can shoot it. Lexi Hull was 4 or 5 from 3. They can shoot it. In my opinion, though, I'm going to butcher her name, and I feel terrible. Timmy Fugbinley. I'm assuming that's how you say it. Great off the bench. She was plus 21. I like when she plays. Smart with the ball in her hands. Sets good screens. Plays good defense. You can't ask for much more from a backup center. Indiana Fever with a big win at home over the Atlanta Dream yesterday. We got more football tonight to get back on the thing that everyone actually wants to talk about. Aaron Rodgers returns tonight. 4 plays last year, tears his Achilles. Now he's back on the road against the 49ers. Look, everyone knows the story at this point. 49ers don't take projected number 1 overall pick Aaron Rodgers with the first pick. Instead, they opt for Alex Smith. That was obviously the wrong choice. And Aaron Rodgers now wants to remind everyone of that once again. I can't wait for this game. The Jets are, I would argue, the most interesting team in the NFL. Restructured offensive line, bringing in Tyrone Smith from the Dallas Cowboys, a guy who's played left tackle at a high level for a long time now. Like, what's this Jets team going to look like? We know that the defense is going to be good. How good is Aaron Rodgers going to be? Here are the 2 things that we know about Aaron Rodgers and what we're going to see from him tonight. He's not going to turn the ball over. That's one thing he's always done incredibly well. I personally wish he would throw more interceptions, raise the level of risk. Okay, that way you have an opportunity for some bigger plays. So he's not going to turn the ball over, and you know that he's going to read defenses properly and give the Jets a chance to win. Breece Hall going to be a big part of that offense. He's back as well after getting hurt last year. So Jets should be interesting. As everyone knows, I'm out on the 49ers. I don't think that they'll make the playoffs this year. Okay, like Christian McCaffrey hurt during training camp. I think he's playing tonight. Brandon Ayuk, he's obviously playing. So going to be interesting to see what the 49ers look like, how that defense appears with the departure. No, Raheem Morris was in LA. My bad. But they do have a defensive coordinator. So going to be interesting to see how the 49ers look kind of tonight and how they perform. Staying around the AFC South games yesterday, say what you want about Anthony Richardson. Maybe you like how he played. Maybe you didn't. At least he's not Will Levis. Okay, do you guys remember the 3rd week of the preseason where Anthony Richardson threw an interception with which he had a miscommunication with Kylan Granson, and then everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, Anthony Richardson sucks." And then we turned on the following day to watch the Saints and the Titans play in the 3rd and final preseason game of the year, and we saw Will Levis hit a bunch of checkdowns and like 2 intermediate passes, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, Will Levis, so much better than Anthony Richardson. Oh my goodness." And then the Bears beat the Titans yesterday without scoring a single offensive touchdown. Will Levis was 19 for 32 for 127 yards. That's less than Anthony Richardson. He only threw 1 touchdown, which is less than what Anthony Richardson did yesterday. He threw 2 interceptions, which was more than the number that Anthony Richardson threw yesterday. One of them was the worst interception I've seen in my life. He's like rolling left, trying to get away from pressure. He can't get away from the pressure. And in a panic, he flips the ball forward right to a Bears defensive back who catches it, returns it to the house for a pick 6. Okay, now, while I'm trashing Will Levis, I must also trash Caleb Williams because he too was awful yesterday. 14 for 29, 93 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Caleb Williams was atrocious yesterday. He was terrible. Okay, clearly flustered, right? Like made some bad throws. He wasn't very good. He wasn't. But for the first time in Caleb Williams' career, college included in this, he has a team around him that he now knows he doesn't have to be Superman for. When you watched him play at USC, when you watched him play at Oklahoma, he knew that he had to score every time he touched the ball because the defense wasn't going to get stops. He knew that the special teams unit wasn't going to make any sort of big plays to help his team win. But yesterday, he goes out, he completes less than half of his passes, doesn't throw for 100 yards, and his team wins. I think this will help him relax a little bit. I think it'll help him play better. So Bears still highly intriguing. Will Levis, terrible. The Jags lose to the Miami Dolphins. they shouldn't have. Travis Etienne just holds on to the ball. Then they win the game, but he didn't. They lose 20-17 on the road. Obviously, the Texans win and all that kind of stuff. So Anthony Richardson played well yesterday. Looked better than Will Levis. So I don't know. That's not really saying much. That's not much of a compliment saying someone looked better than Will Levis. Just about every quarterback in the NFL yesterday looked better than Will Levis did. So Colts, they're going to be fine. They should win this week. Okay, I know for me, I had them being 1-1 after, 2 weeks worth of play. Just because I thought that they'd win week 1, lose week 2, going on the road to Green Bay. But for those of you who haven't heard, Jordan Love sprained his MCL on Friday night playing in Brazil. So he's not playing this week. Look, the Colts better be able to beat Malik Willis. If this Colts defense can't stop Malik Willis, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit for what I'm obviously going to talk about later in the week. But if they can't stop Malik freaking Willis, the former backup quarterback of the Titans and now the backup quarterback for Green Bay, a guy who was traded to Green Bay for a 7th-round pick, then it's going to be a long year for this Indianapolis Colts defense. They should win on Sunday, bounce back from this loss. I expect for the offense to look better going into week 2. I also expect for the defense to look better. But we have things to talk about week 1. Because Anthony Richardson didn't play all that bad. I got my thoughts on Anthony Richardson when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. We had football yesterday. We had football last Thursday. We had football on Friday. We had football on Saturday. We had football yesterday. Just a football-filled weekend, which made me incredibly happy. Oh, it was so great. Sitting on the couch, eating good food, the notepads out, 2 pens, writing things down. Just, it was beautiful. Beautiful. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. I hate that I'm wearing long sleeves, or else I would show you, because there's nothing better than making that groove in your couch and watching some awesome, entertaining, fun football. And that's what we got from the Colts. It was fun. It was entertaining because Anthony Richardson is incredible. And he was everything that he was advertised to be coming into the season. He made some incredible, awesome plays that maybe one other guy in the NFL, Josh Allen, could make. But he also had some absolute stinkers, right? Missed some short throws that he should have made, right? Sailed on some, left some short. The interception he threw wasn't his fault. Kylan Granson just fell. It's incredible to me that I'm sitting on my couch watching guys that are way better athletes than I am, watching some of the best athletes in the world. And the guy could not fall down. If Kylan Granson doesn't fall down and he catches that pass, game looks a little bit different, more than likely. But either way, talking about Anthony Richardson here, there were highs, there were lows, just as we all thought there would be coming into this season. And as I was sitting down watching the Colts game, I had the good old split screen view going, watching multiple games. And, so I'm like bouncing around, the sound on all of them, just listening to whatever games are actually on. And, like when you're looking at, the corner of the screen that, for me at least, when I was looking at the corner of the screen that the Colts were on, like my peripheral vision lets me see everything else on the other screens as well. And so, there are commercials obviously running on other channels during the Colts game. And, have you ever watched one of those like drug commercials? During the commercial, it starts off like really dreary. It's like basically in black and white. And then as they start talking about the drug, everything is like sunshine and rainbows, and people are walking on beaches and riding bikes and doing just all these happy things, and it's great. And as they're describing all the positive effects of the drug, the issues that the drug addresses, what happens? You sit there on your couch and like, I've got some mild symptoms of those things. I'm kind of interested in purchasing that drug. Then, as soon as your interest is piqued and you're like, let's check this thing out. Like, let me call my doctor. I got him on speed dial. At the end of the commercial, they list all of these side effects. They're like, side effects may include nausea, vomiting, fatigue, dizziness, dry mouth, headache, itching, muscle aches, and pains. And they list all these things out. And then you're like, I don't know if I'm struggling that bad with, fill in the blank, So unless you're mightily struggling with whatever the drug is designed to treat, you pass. You're like, those side effects, I don't want them. Okay? And this is Anthony Richardson. Like, that is who he is. And we saw it on full display yesterday. You get all these positives. He's big. He's fast. He's strong. He can make crazy plays that only an infinitesimal amount of quarterbacks in the NFL can make. Right? And you're just like you see him slip and drop the 65-yard dot right into Alec Pierce's hands, and you see him rip this deep over route. He throws it like 100 miles an hour and he hits the guy on the crosser, and then he takes off and he scores. Highs. Okay. You saw him, have a rushing touchdown where he gets hit at like the 3-yard line and then churns his legs as he powers his way into the end zone. Okay. Like, he made some crazy plays. You're like, these highs are awesome, but there are also some negative side effects when it comes to Anthony Richardson playing quarterback in the NFL. There just are. Okay. And we knew what they were. We did. Like the Indianapolis Colts, when they drafted Anthony Richardson, they should have done one of these drug advertisements on Anthony Richardson, right? Where they highlight all the highs and then they talk about some of the side effects that come with Anthony Richardson playing quarterback for you. Like seriously, it would not have been hard to script at all. Like here. Hello there. Are you an Indianapolis Colts fan? Are you tired of the revolving door at quarterback? Are you ready to move past and forget about Andrew Luck, his retirement that happened 5 years ago? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then we have the quarterback for you. Introducing the 4th overall selection of the 2023 NFL Draft, Anthony Richardson. He stands tall and firm at 6'4", 250 pounds, but that size doesn't slow him down as he possesses 4.4 speed. When it comes to throwing the football, he has the arm strength of Zeus. He is a physical specimen the quarterback position has never seen before. Side effects of the incredibly athletic quarterback may include inaccurate short passes, overthrowing deep passes, sailing intermediate passes, bad decision-making, and many, many injuries, including shoulder surgery, concussions, and a torn meniscus. If you want to see this in action, then buy your Colts season tickets today, please. That is precisely what we saw on Sunday and precisely what we've seen from him these last 2 seasons. High highs and low lows. That is who Anthony Richardson is as a quarterback, and that's who he's going to continue to be throughout his young career. Okay? And look, the highs were awesome. We saw the arm strength on the 2 touchdown passes and the deep ball to Alec Pierce that wasn't a touchdown. We saw the speed on multiple rushing attempts. We saw the overwhelming size and power on the touchdown run. The dude is clearly talented, and calling him talented doesn't even seem like it does him justice. Okay? And despite the lack of consistency that I'm about to highlight, there were only 5 quarterbacks in the NFL yesterday that threw for more yards than Anthony Richardson did. Say what you want about the Colts, say what you want about Anthony Richardson. But the only reason the Colts had any sort of chance whatsoever to win yesterday was because of Anthony Richardson. They had no run game, none whatsoever. Jonathan Taylor, 16 carries for only 48 yards. Okay, when you look at the Colts' total offense, there wasn't very much. Okay, their total offense was about 303 yards. Anthony Richardson had like 270 of them. Okay, Anthony Richardson was the only reason the Colts had any sort of chance to win yesterday. And after the game, Indianapolis Colts head coach Shane Steichen went to the podium and he was asked about Anthony Richardson's performance yesterday.
He made some big-time plays for us. Obviously, that opening touchdown pass to Alec, I don't think I've seen a throw like that. And then he hit another big one, to Alec right there at the end on a 2-minute drive to get down there and score. He had Ashton on the end cut, and then 4th down, got to have it. I mean, he just powered his will to go get in. I thought he did some really good things coming back.
Yeah, you can't deny it. Shane Steichen is exactly right. He did some really good things. He did. Okay? The deep balls to Pierce, he did some really good things. And we saw all the positives. And if you get on Twitter, if you turn on your TV and go to literally any sports channel, chances are you're going to see all of the positives that we saw. But we also saw some of the negatives. He missed 3 short throws that would have extended drives. And he missed 2 deep shots to A.D. Mitchell that would have been touchdowns. Okay, the 3 drive extenders that he missed cannot happen. Those are throws that the average quarterback in the NFL makes. They are. Like, you can't miss an 8-yard curl. You can't miss a 7-yard out route. Like, you can't miss those. Okay? Like, those are the layups that the best quarterbacks in the NFL hit. Okay? Like, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, we admire these guys, and they are the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. We admire these guys because of these amazing plays that they make. And we don't ridicule them because they make the layups. They make the easy throws. And that is the area of Anthony Richardson's game that he has to improve at. He has to get better at making the layups. The 3 drive extending throws that he missed, he has to make those. Okay, I'm not as upset about the 2 balls that he missed to A.D. Mitchell because he hit 3 other ones, and those are just hard throws to make. That deep ball down the sideline it's a tough throw. Okay, I had, the split screen action going on my TV, and I had the Dolphins on because they were playing the Jags, and I want to keep track of the AFC South, and I want to see what, the Dolphins look like because they're just fun and they're exciting. And I saw Tua miss Tyreek Hill on not 1, not 2, but 3 deep balls that would have been touchdowns. Okay, those are hard completions to make, and guys are going to miss throws. It happens sometimes. But if Anthony hits one of those deep balls to A.D. Mitchell, then those plays would have changed the game. Okay, and in Shane Steichen's first response, he didn't address the bad throws that Anthony Richardson made. So an Indianapolis reporter did a great job of following up and asking, hey, man, sure, he made some great plays, but what about the misses? And here's what Shane Steichen had to say.
Yeah, obviously he'd love to have those back. I mean, like I said, guys, he's gonna miss some throws, just like all these quarterbacks in the league will miss some throws. But we'll get them cleaned up.
He's exactly right. Quarterbacks in the NFL, as great as they are, they do miss throws. Okay, we saw Lamar Jackson miss one on Thursday night. It happens. We saw Matthew Stafford miss a couple last night. He had a ball that if he'd completed it to Cooper Kupp, the Rams would have won. Okay, it's like a 3rd and 4. Cooper Kupp beats his guy. Matthew Stafford throws the ball just a little bit too far, grazes off of Cooper Kupp's fingertips, and the Rams lose in overtime because of it. Guys miss throws. It happens. Okay, and when you have a guy like Anthony Richardson, who is only making his 5th start in the NFL, a guy who didn't play a ton in college, a guy who didn't play a ton in high school, this guy, of course, is going to miss throws. Okay, the ups and downs are going to happen all year long. They are. Okay, he's going to miss more throws, short ones and long ones. The hope is that over the course of the season, as Anthony Richardson gets more reps, the hope is that he gets better. The hope is that we see him start to hit some of these layups. Okay, because the long bombs that he hit yesterday are awesome. Okay, and I love them, but you have to be consistent as a quarterback in the NFL if you want to win games. You have to. It is an absolute requirement. Okay, so am I disappointed that Anthony Richardson missed some of the layups yesterday? Yes, of course I am. I just spent 5 minutes talking about it. Okay, but here's the thing. The only reason the Indianapolis Colts had any sort of chance whatsoever to win yesterday was because of Anthony Richardson. Okay? If you had been told before the game that Jonathan Taylor was only going to average 3 yards a carry, and if you had been told that the Houston Texans would win the time of possession battle 40 minutes to 20, we all would have thought that the Indianapolis Colts got blown out. That's exactly what I would have thought. I've been like, geez, they probably lost 35-10. But that's not what happened because Anthony Richardson was good. Okay? Despite a lack of consistency in hitting some of those short, easy throws, despite having no run game whatsoever from Jonathan Taylor, despite having a defense that, couldn't stop the run, the Colts still managed to score 27 points and have a chance, and they had a chance to win the game late. The defense just couldn't get a stop. That's the reality of it. This offense is going to score points with Anthony Richardson at quarterback. They're going to. Okay, we saw it yesterday. No run game from Jonathan Taylor. Offensive line couldn't generate a push, and it didn't matter because Anthony Richardson was able to put the Colts on his back for some of these stretches. The Colts finished the game with 303 yards of total offense. Anthony Richardson had 270 of them. Okay? He was the offense for the Colts yesterday. He had little to no help whatsoever, which is frustrating because this is supposed to be a roster that helps Anthony Richardson. That's what it's supposed to be. And it wasn't yesterday. The defense was horrendously bad. The defense has got to be better. The offensive line has to create room for Jonathan Taylor to run. Because as well as Anthony Richardson played yesterday, we can't expect for him to throw 2 50-plus yard touchdown passes in every game that they play. We can't expect for him to hit 3 deep shots in every game that the Colts play. We cannot expect that out of him. That is an unfair standard to have. The Colts have to find some sort of consistency in their offense, whether that's, and look, it has to be the run game. It has to be, because we know Anthony Richardson and where he's at this point in his development. We do. We know that he's not going to be a guy that's going to hit all of his layups. He's just not. So the run game has to get going. That is the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to seeing next week when the Colts go on the road to take on the Green Bay Packers. Do they figure out a way to run the football? I like Shane Steichen. I think he's a good offensive head coach. And because of that, I fully expect for the Indianapolis Colts to figure out a way to run the football next week when they play the Packers. And I'm disappointed at the fact that they couldn't figure out a way to do it this week against the Houston Texans. Speaking of Jonathan Taylor and running the football, I've got more thoughts on his performance. And I have to talk about the defense because they are why the Indianapolis Colts lost. A guy with a huge mouth didn't show up for the Indianapolis Colts, and it makes sense because some guys talk and other guys show up and play well. I'm going to tell you who that player is when we come back here in 4 minutes.
Often imitated, never duplicated. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Tickets, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you're not too disappointed after a Colts loss yesterday. Yes, they lost, but there's definitely some good that came out of that game. Anthony Richardson played well. A Colts offense that was severely limited still figured out a way to put up 27 points, all because of Anthony Richardson, might I add you, because Jonathan Taylor and the offensive line decided just to not show up, and they decided to not run the football at all. They didn't run the football at all, and it's annoying and a little frustrating. There was all this excitement for Jonathan Taylor and what he would look like alongside Anthony Richardson, and while Anthony Richardson looked good, had 270 or 260 something of the Colts' 303 yards yesterday, Jonathan Taylor didn't do much of anything. And Shane Steichen was asked about the lack of a run game that the Colts showed yesterday. And here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I think really you can put that on me. Like, I could have called more runs. You know what I mean? I could have called more runs there. I think we had 19 passes. I don't remember how many carries we had. But yeah, we'll look at those things and get that thing cleaned up.
16 carries, Shane. That's the answer to your question. Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor only had 16 carries. That's it. That is not okay. Now, I do appreciate Shane Steichen falling on the sword there. There is validity to what he said. I would argue that the best player on your offense, Jonathan Taylor, should touch the ball more than 16 times. Okay, it doesn't necessarily have to be on a handoff. Could have been off of a screen. It's, just annoying. He should have had more touches. And look, in the run game, he didn't play well. He didn't find holes. It was bad. Okay, and while Jonathan Taylor didn't play well, the offensive line didn't really help him. They didn't generate any sort of consistent push against the Houston Texans front. And I think that the proof of that is Jonathan Taylor's longest run of the day was only 7 yards. And that's just not good enough. Simple as that. Okay. I like Anthony Richardson. He's going to do a lot of good things for the Colts this year in terms of big plays and things of that nature. But every successful offense in the NFL has to have something that they can lean on when they need 4 yards. And because Anthony Richardson is going to lack consistency this year, Jonathan Taylor and this offensive line should be the thing that the Colts lean on when they need a first down. The offensive line that we heard so much about all offseason and all through training camp, Ryan Kelly, Colts center, saying this is the most talented offensive line room that I've been a part of. Where was that at? Where was this Colts offensive line? It's one of the 5 best in the NFL. Where was that at yesterday? It didn't show up. Okay, they were fine in pass protection, only gave up 2 sacks. Part of that is because Anthony Richardson is incredibly mobile. Okay, but the run game has to be better. The offensive line that the Colts have invested a lot of money in has to be better. It does. And if it's not, if they aren't going to be able to figure out a way to consistently run Jonathan Taylor, then this offense is going to struggle, okay? Because you can't rely on Anthony Richardson to throw 250-plus yard touchdown passes every game. Like you can't rely on that. There has to be some level of consistency in some area for the Colts, and it should be the run game because Jonathan Taylor is a good running back, and this offensive line is supposed to be amongst the best in the NFL. Okay, but the Houston Texans, you got to tip your cap to them. They did a good job of stopping the run. And it once again proves my point and disproves Chris Ballard's point of, signing your own isn't always the best course of action. Part of the reason why the Houston Texans had success in stopping the Indianapolis Colts run game is because this offseason they went out and they added 3 players that weren't on their team last year to help beef up this front 7. And they did that. They played well, those 3 guys that they brought in. Also, Joe Mixon, not on their team last year. He was kind of important yesterday. Free agency is important, and Chris Ballard just doesn't get it. It's really frustrating. Moving to the defensive side of the ball. Football's funny. We spent all offseason talking about the Colts and on the defensive side of the ball, all the concerns were about the secondary. All of them were. Man, like, are we really going to start Nick Cross at safety? Not very comfortable with that. Juju Brents, he's really going to be our corner number one. Like, I don't know. Like, it's only his second year. He didn't play a ton last year. He kind of gets hurt a lot. I don't know if he should really be that guy. And then you look at Jalen Jones, and you're like, 7th round pick. Not great. Not really what you want. Okay? But the Colts secondary played well yesterday. Simple as that. They showed up. They allowed one big play to Nico Collins over the top. Outside of that, they kept everything in front. I thought the secondary played well yesterday. CJ Stroud only averaged 7 yards of completion. That is incredibly low. That is absurdly low. And that speaks to the job that the Colts did against the Texans, because the Texans have 3 guys, and Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, and Tank Dell, that can not only get open, but are explosive guys after the catch, who can get open, make a grab, and then run for 30 more yards. Okay, those are the type of guys that the Texans have, and I thought the Colts secondary did a good job of defending them. Only 7 yards a reception is that's good defense from the back end. And they also did a great job in the run game, because they had to. Felt like every time I looked up, a secondary player, a corner or a safety, was coming up to tackle Joe Mixon, the Houston Texans starting running back. Nick Cross, Colts safety, led the Colts in tackles with 14. Just shouldn't happen. Should never, ever happen. Julian Blackmon was second for the Colts yesterday in terms of tackles. He had 13. That should also never, ever happen. Okay, so not only did the secondary do a good job of defending the pass, they also did a great job of coming up and offering support in run defense, even though they shouldn't have to do that, because this front seven is supposed to be the strength of this Colts defense. And they got pushed around all day, the entire game. Joe Mixon, once again, a free agent acquisition of the Houston Texans, had 30 carries for 159 yards. The Texans as a whole, as a team, had 40 carries for 213 yards. Not a genius, but if you give up 200 yards rushing, you aren't going to beat anybody. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter if you're Alabama, Georgia, whoever. If you give up 200 yards on the ground, you aren't going to beat anyone. And that definitely can't happen when the strength of your defense is supposed to be your front seven, when the strength of your defense is supposed to be the defensive line and the linebackers. You can't give up 200 yards rushing. You just can't allow that to happen. And the most frustrating part of all of this is that the guy for the Colts who has ran his mouth more than anyone else didn't show up yesterday. The guy for the Colts that is, gone on Twitter and has all these smart remarks and goes on his podcast and talks about the Texans and says, quote, "I got to see that boy again," talking about CJ Stroud. Yeah, that guy who talked all offseason didn't show up. Zaire Franklin was non-existent yesterday. He had 8 tackles. As a middle linebacker, that's pathetic. You didn't feel his presence whatsoever. Meanwhile, I watched the Ravens, and I'm like, geez, Roquan Smith all over the field. You could feel his presence. We're going to watch the San Francisco 49ers tonight play against the New York Jets, and we're going to sit back and we're going to watch Fred Warner, the best middle linebacker in football, and you're going to feel his presence in both aspects of the game, both in coverage and in coming up and stuffing the run. Zaire Franklin, I don't think his name was called yesterday. Okay? And the most frustrating part of it is he's going to wake up today. He's going to go to some room in his house with his old microphones, and he's going to call his buddy EJ Speed, say, "Hey, EJ, you want to come do a podcast with me?" And EJ's going to come over and be like, "Yeah, man, I would love to do a podcast with you." And they're going to come over and they're going to talk about the game. They're going to be like, "Oh, we have to be better." And, "Oh, Anthony Richardson, dude's got a cannon." And, they're just going to talk like normal. Even though those two guys, Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed, were the primary reasons as to why the Colts lost yesterday. Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed need to discontinue their podcast and go get better at football instead. The only people in sports, or the only athletes in sports that should have podcasts are older players that have won. Like if Tom Brady had wanted to start a podcast his last year in Tampa Bay, or shoot, just when he moved down to Tampa Bay, I had no problem with it whatsoever because he's a proven winner. Okay, if Ray Lewis, during his career, if he had wanted to start a podcast with Ed Reed, go right ahead. I'd have listened to that one. I'll be honest with you. Okay, the only guys that should talk are guys that have actually won. And I sit back and, you know, I get stuff on my feed from Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed because my algorithm just hates me, I guess. I don't know. And it's always just a bunch of nonsense. And I'm just like, why do people listen to these guys? Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed have a combined 0 Pro Bowls, 0 All-Pro selections, and a whopping 1 playoff win, which came in 2018, EJ Speed's rookie season. Zaire Franklin ran his mouth all off season. A guy who's never won a playoff game ran his mouth and didn't show up in week 1. Oh, we got to get our get back. This is a revenge game. Got it circled on the calendar. Can't wait to go out there and beat the Texans. All that kind of stuff. Stop. Don't say that. Don't tweet it. Delete your Twitter account. Delete your Instagram account. Delete your podcast or discontinue it during the regular season and go get better at football instead. Go figure out how to win, please. Because if Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed are going to play as pathetically as they did on Sunday for the rest of the season, then the Colts aren't going to stop anybody. Okay? And now, I would argue it's 90% their fault. The defensive line undoubtedly could have and needs to be better in the run game. But I give them a bit more of a pass because the pass rush was better than advertised. They got after CJ Stroud the entire game. The entire game, they moved CJ Stroud off his spot, made him run around. It was impressive. The Indianapolis Colts had 4 sacks and 10 quarterback hits yesterday. That is a highly productive game from this Colts defensive line. They did their job and then some in the passing game. But when it comes to stopping the run, they have got to be better. Grover Stewart, he's in there to help stop the run. Okay, they went out and they signed Raekwon Davis. He's in there to help stop the run. That's why he's there. Grover Stewart, Colts gave up a first-round pick, if I remember correctly, to trade for that guy. They brought him in not only to rush the passer, which he did yesterday, 1.5 sacks, but they also brought him in to help stop the run. And none of the defensive tackles did that for the Colts yesterday. They didn't. Okay, when it comes to Laiatu Latu, every time he was on the field, I was watching him. I thought he played well. You know, especially considering he was matched up on Laramie Tunsil, one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL. He did a good job winning and sending Stroud out of the pocket. It was an impressive performance from Laiatu Latu. I thought he played well. The stats may not support that, but I thought he got after the quarterback. Kwity Paye had a sack. Throw it in the pile of Kwity Paye highlights. I'll invite you guys all over for nachos and pizza later, and we can watch it on repeat. Forrest Buckner, 1.5 sacks. Tyquan Lewis winning off the edge, taking advantage of the extra snaps since Ibukam got hurt and tore his Achilles. Okay, the defensive line, in terms of their ability to get after the passer, was good. It was impressive. But the rest of it, the run game, man, they've got to get better at it. Okay, if you want the most glass half full take from watching this defense yesterday, here it is. I feel better, not great, better about the Colts and their ability to hold on to leads late in games. If they're, up by, 5 with a minute and a half left and the opposing team has the ball and they need a touchdown and the Colts know that they're going to throw the ball. After watching this game yesterday, and this may be me just reading into things way too much, I know that the Colts defensive line is going to disrupt the passer, and I know that this Colts secondary is going to keep the ball in front of them. Once again, I thought that the Colts secondary played well yesterday. And I thought that the Colts defensive line got after the passer. The run game stuff, though, has to be better. Because if it doesn't get better, they aren't going to beat anyone. Simple as that. They aren't going to beat anyone. Okay? Because they're going on the road this week to Lambeau. No Jordan Love, sprained his MCL. That means we're going to see a heavy dose of Josh Jacobs running the ball right at this Indianapolis Colts front seven. And if they aren't ready, and Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed don't figure out how to get off blocks and make tackles, then the Colts are going to lose to Malik Willis and the Green Bay Packers. And that cannot happen. Next week, the Colts got a gift. Jordan Love is hurt. That is a game that they need to win. Okay? Jeez. Gotta have it from them. Incredibly disappointed in the Colts and their ability to stop the run. It was the one thing that I was confident in for this defense coming into the season, and it just didn't show up. And I'm sure that the Notre Dame Fighting Irish were very confident about beating Northern Illinois on Saturday, and they didn't show up either. I've got my thoughts on that game when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Welcome back to The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Little break here from the Indianapolis Colts. They're all I've talked about all day, which is, totally fine by me. Love talking Colts. They're going to be fun to watch this year. They're going to be entertaining. And say what you want about Richardson, he is incredibly exciting. Okay, no one can deny that. Missed some layups yesterday, but ultimately he put the Colts in a position to win, so it's hard to be too upset about his performance. If you want to be upset about anyone's performance from the weekend, it has to be Notre Dame. Oh, man, I'll be honest. I'd be way more upset about the Colts loss, but since Notre Dame lost, it makes me feel better. It just does, and especially the fact that they lost to Northern Illinois at home. They only scored 14 points against a team that was predicted to finish third in the MAC. Come on now. You got to be better than that. And I think that the frustrating thing for me is just how Notre Dame lost. Like, believe it or not, I've been labeled a Notre Dame hater. That feels a bit harsh. Believe it or not, I like Marcus Freeman. I think he's a good coach. He's not Nick Saban. He's not Kirby Smart or any of those guys. But he is a good defensive-minded coach. But there's two sides to the ball, as we have discussed a ton when it comes to the Colts. And look, if you're coaching in the world of college football, you're not winning games if you only score 14 points. Okay? And more importantly, you shouldn't only score 14 points against Northern Illinois. Okay? They went out into the transfer portal, and they paid Riley Leonard a ton of money to come to Notre Dame. Okay? He was a projected first-round NFL draft prospect. There was excitement for it. Like, I remember when the news came out that he was going to Notre Dame, I was like, okay, like they're going to have a legitimately good starting quarterback. Like, Notre Dame could actually be for real this year. And then you watch the game against Texas A&M, and it's like, they're playing a Mike Elko defense. He'll rebound next week. And then he was bad against Northern Illinois. He may no longer be an NFL draft prospect. Okay? He threw 2 bad interceptions and couldn't throw for 200 yards. Once again against Northern Illinois. And I don't get it. They threw the ball 33 times. Didn't make any sense to me, man. Like, I don't understand why Notre Dame didn't run Jeremiah Love more. Doesn't make any sense. It's truly beyond me. He only had 11 carries, and he ran the ball for 73 yards. That's over 7 yards a carry on average. And I know he had a couple big runs that inflates that yards per carry number. But you're Notre Dame, and they're Northern Illinois. Every team just seems to be good at specific things, and when it comes to Notre Dame, something that they are always good at for my entire life, they always have good offensive linemen that get drafted really high in the NFL draft. They do. There is no reason whatsoever that Notre Dame should not have lined the football up, ran it right at Northern Illinois, and just ran them over. Seriously. Like, when you look at the talent and the physicality, like, Notre Dame is so much better than Northern Illinois, to a point where I would have a better chance of surviving in Antarctica naked after being dropped from a helicopter with no supplies than Northern Illinois would have had at stopping Notre Dame if they had just consistently ran the ball, if they'd fully committed to the run. But they didn't. They wanted to throw the ball 33 times and not be physical. Come on now. There's no reason why Notre Dame should have had more passing attempts than rushing attempts against Northern Illinois. They should have lined it up and ran Northern Illinois over and over and over and over again. Insert Marshawn Lynch meme here. Okay? No reason for it whatsoever. And I've been outspoken about the college football playoff. I think 12 teams is too many. And look, if Notre Dame makes the playoff, after losing to Northern Illinois, I'm going to be so upset. No way they deserve to make a playoff after losing at home to Northern frickin' Illinois. Okay, and if they make it, I'm going to be upset. And so hopefully it doesn't happen, because I feel like shows when I'm upset aren't very fun to listen to. So let's hope it doesn't happen. In more news in college football, Colorado got stomped, and I will admit I am a Colorado hater. Actually, that's not true. I'm a Colorado truth teller. Okay, they're all talk, they're all flash, no substance. Okay, they're the guy that rents a really nice car and shows up to his high school reunion in it. That's who they are. Okay, and they played a team that has actual substance in Nebraska, and they got curb stomped. And it was beautiful to hear Shedeur Sanders after the game complain about his offensive line. It wasn't surprising at all because that's who Colorado is. They don't take responsibility for anything that they do. They just pass the blame along to everyone else. And it's not surprising at all that they got stomped by a much better Nebraska football team that's going to be a tough out in the Big Ten. Moving on to Sunday. Let me take a little break from football here for a second. If you didn't know, the Indiana Fever played, and they had an overtime win over the Atlanta Dream. Okay? Caitlin Clark had 26 points and 12 assists. Aaliyah Boston had 30 points and 13 rebounds. And Kelsey Mitchell had 21 points as the Fever overcame a 16-point deficit to win the game in overtime. These are the perks of having a high-powered offense. When Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, and Caitlin Clark all score the ball, the Fever just don't lose. Okay? Like, you're never out of a game when you have three players who can score like the Indiana Fever do. Okay? Clark, she had 9 turnovers. I don't care. She had 26 points and 12 assists. The good greatly outweighs the bad. And I love Caitlin Clark. She gets it. Like, there are certain people who sit in front of a microphone and they're asked questions or they do a podcast and you can just tell that they just don't get it. Like, whatever it is, they just don't understand, they just don't have the ability to say smart things for whatever reason. And Caitlin Clark has that ability. She and Aaliyah Boston were asked if the game yesterday felt like a playoff game. And here's what they had to say.
I think every single game when we're competing.
We've never played in a playoff game. So I would assume. Does it feel like it? Can you predict the future? I mean, maybe. Maybe. We can see. I think they got a little more in them.
Aaliyah Boston was about to say yes. I feel like every game feels like a playoff game. And Caitlin Clark cuts her off and tells the truth of, we've never played in a playoff game. We have no idea whatsoever. And this is part of the draw to Caitlin Clark. She just gets it. She doesn't say idiotic things. Okay? She doesn't. It's like, hey, was this game like a playoff game? I have no idea. Never played in one. And Leah Boston is like trying to justify it. And good old Caitlin Clark is like, can you predict the future? And Leah Boston's like, we'll see. So I appreciate that. It's part of her charm. It's part of what I think makes people like her. Okay, she gets it. She's normal, and she's just a smart person, which is really, really nice. And obviously she had a big role in their win yesterday over the Atlanta Dream. Lady off the bench, Timmy, forgive me for butchering this last name, Fagbinelli, was great off the bench. She was plus 21, led the Fever in plus minus. I like it when she plays. Smart with the ball, sets good screens, plays good defense, just plays her role really well. And you can't ask for much more than that from a backup center. I thought she played well. Moving on to more football. We have football tonight. Oh, it's so great. Thursday night football, Friday night football, Saturday football, Sunday football, Monday night football tonight. And it should be a fun and entertaining game. The most interesting team in the NFL is the Jets. So many questions with the offensive line, questions about Aaron Rodgers coming off the Achilles, like a lot of questions there when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. And look, it's always fun watching him play against the 49ers. Because everyone knows that the 49ers passed on Aaron Rodgers. Instead, they drafted Alex Smith, major franchise mistake, all those things. And every time they play, Aaron Rodgers wants to remind them of that. So I'm undoubtedly going to be tuned in tonight. I want to see what this Jets offense looks like with Aaron Rodgers playing quarterback. This is something that we've anticipated for the last 2 years, right? And we didn't get to see it last year because he tore his Achilles on the fourth play of the year. They've got a good running back in Breece Hall. Going to be fun. Going to be exciting to watch the Jets play the 49ers tonight. If you've tuned into the show, you know that I don't think the 49ers are going to be very good this year. Okay, just teams that lose the Super Bowl never bounce back very well. To quote Jason Kelce from last year, the Eagles were 10-1, and he said something along the lines of how sad everyone was that they had lost the Super Bowl the year prior. It just kind of hangs over your season, and that's going to happen to the 49ers, and they're going to get banged up this year because they're the 49ers, and all their best players always get hurt. It's going to happen. So intrigued to see what they look like, though, tonight. And other news in the football world, Will Levis is terrible, absolutely awful, threw 2 terrible interceptions yesterday. As the Bears won without scoring an offensive touchdown. I mean, Caleb Williams didn't play very well. Really just a rough day for all of the rookie quarterbacks. Bo Nix threw 2 bad interceptions. He was terrible in that Seattle game. Like he couldn't have been much worse. Seriously, like 2 ugly picks. Didn't really push the ball down the field very well. Like Sean Payton's got some work to do with Bo Nix, right? Me included, I was excited to see what he looked like once the regular season started. I've got, the Broncos to win over 5.5 games. That was my favorite, preseason bet of the year. Bo Nix, not very good, man. If he has to throw the ball more than 5 yards down the field, it wasn't pretty. Then again, he's playing the Seahawks, who have a lot of defensive talent. It's a Seahawks team coached by Mike McDonald, who is a young, up-and-coming defensive head coach. That was his first time as the head coach of the Seahawks. That was his first game as an NFL head coach, and he helped that defense really kind of rattle a young Bo Nix. And it was very clear that Bo Nix was young and rattled. So he struggled. Caleb Williams struggled in his debut. I watched a bit of the Commanders game. Jaden Daniels ran the ball incredibly well. He ran for 88 yards, which isn't surprising. We all knew that he'd be able to do that. Baker Mayfield lit up the Commanders. Daniels pretty consistent in the passing game as well. 17 of 24 for 184 yards. It's impressive to me, okay? That he was the most, I think, consistent quarterback of all the rookies that we saw yesterday. But all in all, close out the show. I got like 90 seconds. Anthony Richardson, we're going to be up and down. The ups were awesome yesterday. He's going to give the Colts a chance to win. Okay, you may not have liked some of the missed throws, but the only reason the Colts were in that game yesterday was because of Anthony Richardson and the big plays he was able to make. The 4th down touchdown run was impressive. He got hit at like the 3-yard line and powered his way into the end zone. Hit a couple deep balls that gave the Colts opportunities to score. The interception he threw, not at all his fault. I am so looking forward to seeing how the Colts look the rest of the season. I'm excited to see how Anthony Richardson progresses as the games continue on. The big thing, though, is this defense has got to get it figured out. And the offensive line has got to get it figured out. They have to create room for Jonathan Taylor to run, and the defense has to figure out how to stop the run. The front seven was supposed to be the thing that we felt good about. And we're coming out of week 1 feeling better about the secondary than we feel about the front seven. And that is not a good sign for the things that are coming down the road for the Indianapolis Colts. They got the Packers next week. Should be interesting. No Jordan Love. That's a huge break for the Colts. They need to win that game. They need to win that game. So we'll see how it goes. The Dan Dockett Show coming your way here in about 5 minutes or so. I'll be back on the air tomorrow from 10 to noon, excuse me. Head over to YouTube, search for Indy Sports Ticket, subscribe to the channel, join the live stream, join the conversation, join the chat. It's an absolute blast in there. I'll be back on the air tomorrow from 10 to noon. I will talk to you guys then. The Dan Dockett Show is coming your way here in about 5 minutes.